Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
If there's anybody here this evening who's feeling nervous, apprehensive, and queasy about what lies ahead, it's probably because you've just married Jason Hooley.
It's probably going to get better than that.
As an IT professional, it's kind of a general rule of thumb that people don't let people like me talk in front of a crowd. So as you might expect, I don't have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of public speaking. With that being the case, I've been a bit uptight about this moment. And we've spent a lot of time preparing. So much time that I've had a dream about my speech about 2 weeks ago. In my speech, during that dream, there came a point where the crowd rose to their feet to deliver an ovation, which of course I appreciated.
What are you doing? We're going to stand it.
Yep.
What are you doing? We're going to stand it.
In my dream, the venue was a huge concert hall, and I was out in the crowd with no microphone. I don't really know why. And I think the crowd assumed that whatever line I delivered was my final toast. After the ovation, from which I recall was rather lengthy, everybody stayed on their feet and they began to mingle. I tried to regain their attention so that I could finish my speech. I even tried to yell it, but I failed. Now, while ovations are somewhat expected, they're of course encouraged. But my point is this: you'll know when I'm done by the raising of my champagne. So please settle in. Thank you. Now, as one or two of you here may know, being best man is no easy task. When Jason first offered me the job, I was deeply honored, of course, but also more than a little apprehensive. And despite my aforementioned adverse nature to public speaking, it seems to be genetically encoded in all men to choose the person with the most socially unacceptable traits to get up here. Finally, someone who appreciates me for who I am. I just want to thank everybody for coming. We've got a lot of folks who have traveled a long way to be here to share this special occasion. So, a sincere thank you for your commitment to the bride and groom. I also want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Giardina, as well as my folks, John and Cindy, for their generosity and their coordination. We've had such a great time today and this week, and it's been great getting to know the groomsmen and the bridesmaids. And I'd like to compliment the ladies. You all look stunning today. And particularly you, Elizabeth. I consider myself truly blessed to call you my sister. On behalf of the bridal party and myself, I'd like to thank Jason and Elizabeth for asking us to be involved in the most important day of their lives. I know they both put a tremendous amount of effort into the planning of this wedding, especially Elizabeth. And I can only hope that apart from this speech, everything else will have exceeded your expectations. Elizabeth, I can only say that in my defense, the Hooley brothers share a common sense of humor. So if this speech is in any way unfunny at all, please feel free to blame Jason. There are other qualities that the Hooley brothers share, other than our top-notch sense of humor. It wasn't until Jason went away to college, until anyone in our family realized that we had any similar traits other than our love for sports. You see, Jason is what I would have called a goody-goody. When he was not excelling in sports, he was studying or doing something with the church youth group. The only time I spent praying when I was young was when Dad reached down the pew during the church service, turned my ear what must have been at least 360 degrees, as he mistakenly assumed I was sleeping. When I'd have to correct him and say, "Dad, I was just praying." And I stand by that today. I was quite the opposite from Jason growing up. I wasn't a troublemaker, but I was a bit mischievous. If you saw me on Tuesday or Wednesday, you probably made an assumption already, as I showed up with a sweet Fu Manchu, just to make the bride sweat a little bit about how that might impact their wedding pictures. Instead of churching or studying up, I'd rather been swearing or smoking cigarettes. It's not that I'm real proud of those things, but I've always tended to learn my lessons the hard way. I'm thankful for all my experiences, both good and bad, for where they've gotten me today, and wouldn't have it any other way for me. But for Jason, while watching him grow up and still now, I feel like doing the right thing and being a good man has always come naturally. And while I've never admitted it, I'd like to tell you today that that's something I've always looked up to you for. Now on to some advice, beginning with the groom. I've seen some changes in Jason since he's been with Elizabeth about how he responds to situations. I'd consider him far more laid back and easygoing, which has been a welcome change, I might add. And speaking of change, it's been rumored that some women try to change their men once married. If you happen to find yourself in that situation, don't fight it. A good woman can have that effect on you. Second, women are meant to be loved, not understood. It's important that you don't forget that. The Hooley brothers also tend to be deeply caring, gracious, and driven men. And Jason, I'd like to encourage you to continue to build on those qualities as it applies to your marriage to make it the best it can be. I've been encouraged to hear the way that you spoke about Elizabeth whenever we talk. It reminds me of my feelings toward Jessica from our time together prior to becoming husband and wife. And after 9 years, I still don't have much figured out, but I feel a little bit like I have an understanding of what's in store for you. I'm really happy for you guys. Now on to Elizabeth. You are so lucky to have a man like my brother. He is so caring, so incredibly handsome, so, Jason, I can't read your handwriting. Joking aside, it's been a wonderful honor being best man today, as Jason is a very special person to me. He's a true friend who never ceases to amaze me with his kindness. He has listened to me through many a crisis, and he gives without any thought of reward. He's a super guy and a role model of a friend and brother. And yes, we've had our differences, but nothing that 2 lawyers and a judge couldn't sort out. I'd like to wish the happy couple well and toast to their future happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, to the bride and groom. Here, here.
Best man, everybody.